A lot of things come to mind when I think of Peter Torigian, but uppermost in my mind comes the word integrity and knowing exactly where he came from and never betraying where he came from.
I've never seen a man, a leader, a politician as committed to anything as this mayor was to this city. He was born here, he was raised here, he went to the schools here, he played sports here, he raised his family here. So the commitment started from the beginning.
He was the average Joe. He was the postman that was looking out for their tax dollars. He was the person that was going to make Peabody better.
He took a lot of pride in the city of Peabody and all of the programs that he implemented during that time. So many events that the citizens loved.
The mayor did it right. I thought he's brought out so much pride in this city. It's fantastic. It's just great to be part of something like this.
But it was all about the community. It wasn't about him. It was never about him. He would always say the 50,000 people in the city of Peabody, that's who I represent.
I think he expected a lot of every single person on staff. And so what we ended up with was a team where everybody was pulling in the same direction, where there was tremendous camaraderie among the staff, and where we all embraced his vision.
I've always dreamed that Peabody can be a very special place. And the vision for me is that when people come to this city, they can afford to live here, they can afford to be proud of it, that they have a bounce in their step when they walk down the street because they're part of it. They don't tell people I live in the Boston area, or the Weston area, or the Wellesley area, or the Lexington area. They say I live in Peabody, Massachusetts, because I'm proud to be there.
I don't want to get philosophical here, but it's nice that we can, in this country, despite upbringing and modest background and so forth, become mayor of a city. And to grow up and born and grow up in the neighborhood that I did, to an immigrant father who came here and worked hard in the tanneries all his life, and ended up as the mayor of the city, is not too shabby, in my opinion. I was born on Warren Street. A three-decker. We lived in the third floor, no central heating. It proves one thing to me, that you don't need all the luxuries in the world to be happy. My father worked in the tanneries. He came here in 1912.
His father, I really didn't know very, very well because we weren't married that long when he did pass away. I think he was a lot older than he actually had on his records when he came to this country. His mother did survive the genocide, and it's really a very, very tragic story. They really had a very, very difficult life, and then coming to this country was their saving grace.
Peter developed our parents' honesty and integrity, our father's strong work ethic, and our mother's household budgeting skills at a very young age. He had a paper route when he was 8 years old, and prayed for snow so he could make some extra money shoveling the next morning.
And as I grew up as a young boy, I always recall waiting in front of what is now the courthouse, was the Old South Church. We used to get on the truck and head west to the farms in West Peabody. I worked for Frankie Rosa and Kyle Kiley, who had a farm in West Peabody at age 10, 12, 13 years old, at 25 cents an hour for $12 a week.
My mother, she always said, Peter was a go-getter. He was going to go far in this world. He's going to be a leader.
Whatever he did, whatever he undertook, he always made sure that he was right on top of the heap and so forth. My name is Alexander Kravchuk. Pete and I met when we were both freshmen in high school, Peabody High School, and that was back in 1949. Peter was a great athlete, actually. He played football. He was a quarterback of our team, and he was a catcher on the baseball team, and he also played basketball. And every one of those, to me, they were in a leadership capacity, and so that he would be building upon those things that he did during his athletic years in Peabody High School.
His uncle had wanted to send him to Suffolk University because he saw a talent in that man, but he denied it because he said he had to help his mother and father who had just bought a house. The night that he graduated, he went to work at A.C. Lawrence Leather.
Both of us actually were working in the A.C. Lawrence Leather Company. And after a while, we felt that maybe we ought to give something back to our country. So then Pete now made the decision again. He was always a decision maker between the both of us. He says, we're going to join the Marine Corps. I said to myself, yikes. And our world was turned upside down from day one, really. After graduating from boot camp, then we got our assignments. Pete got his assignment that he was going to be what they call a seagoing Marine. His operation points were the Mediterranean Sea, so he would stop off at ports from Spain to Greece. So he had a nice tour of duty in the Marine Corps.
I came back home in 1958, and a year later we were married.
Part of your identity is as the wife of Mayor Peter Torigian. How did you meet your husband?
We met in high school. I was only a sophomore in high school. I can remember going down to the bonfire at Gallows Hill on the 4th of July, and Peter was there, and we met, and we started chatting, and he walked me home, and that was in 1953, the year that he graduated. And we dated for a year, and he went into the Marine Corps, and of course we broke up. But he called and he wrote letters, and we kind of stayed in touch. So we got married November 1st at St. Thomas's Church, and our reception was at the Palm Gardens. His family hired the Artie Barsamian Band, so we had to have Armenian music, and I had to learn how to dance.
Very important. We had to vote by absentee that year. There was some kind of a message, I think, in that whole thing. I really didn't know what was coming.
We were living on Houghton Street when Jean was born. And then a year later, Nancy was born. But at the time, he was a letter carrier and working his route here in South Peabody. And he said, oh, you got to come and see this. So that became home. And of course, new house, new baby. And we had Laurie. And then we had Sarah a year later. And then 2.5 years later was Linda.
We've raised 5 of our children, gone to public schools. And what's important is that we're a very close family and have a close, warm relationship with our children. And in 1967, I took my first plunge into public life, despite the fact that I had helped others before that. But some things motivated me to do it, and that's 22 years later, and here I am.
Well, it all started when Jean was getting ready to go to kindergarten. It came out that the city was going to start the kindergarten program, and at the last minute, things were changed. He got very angry, very upset about it. He went to the city clerk, Jim Leary at the time.
I do remember him talking with Mr. Leary, the city clerk at the time. Mr. Leary suggested that Peter should run for office. That way he would have a say in this issue and probably could resolve some of his concerns. My name is Natalie Mega, and I started working at City Hall in September of 1963. And then in 1977, I was elected city clerk, and I worked as city clerk until I retired in 2005. So Peter did decide, and he ran for Ward 1 councilor. At the time, Frank Gill, who was the Ward 1 councilor, chose to run for councilor at large, so the seat was open.
He always worked for candidates when he was growing up. So he was very, very much interested in government politics.
I was 6. He would take me out and we would knock on doors because my mom was home with, everybody else. It was very exciting.
And Peter did win the ticket, and he became the ward councilor, and he served in that capacity until 1971.
That was a slow introduction to what was coming.
It was an interesting race, first time for me. And I thought I was elected to the President of the United States when I got elected as a ward councilor.
After 2 terms as ward councilor, he decided to run for councilor at large in 1971.
When he got the election results, it was just astounding. that he won so well. We never really talked that much about moving up, although I should have known.
And then in '73, I got kind of itchy and decided to run for mayor.
That whole campaign was all-consuming for my family. That was the pulse of the family for that year.
We were out every single day from morning to night campaigning, and it was for no other reason, and I'm not trying to in any way sound corny, but we believed what we were doing.
To know Peter was to love him and believed in him, what he stood for and his vision. My husband and I moved to South Peabody in November of 1972, and we had the good fortune to live 2 doors away from Peter and Jackie. He was our mailman and introduced himself right away. He asked all of us if we wanted to help in any way, and my husband and I did. All the neighbors did.
I had taken off 4 months leave of absence from work, and they were not easy times. Obviously, the economics of running for mayor and doing it on a full-time basis was a major strain on the family, but I must say that neighbors and friends and family chipped in.
He was 200% into this. Everybody was so vested, and it was really a family commitment that we were all into this together.
Jackie, how did you feel about the fact that your husband wanted to run for mayor? I mean, that affected you as well.
It most certainly did. I knew that's what he wanted to do. He was a little apprehensive about it, but I just told him that, you know, what's the worst case scenario? Post office will have you back. The final election was between him and Nick Mavroulas, and it was very, very intense.
I was the assistant city clerk. The city was pretty much divided. It was kind of tough to watch sometimes, and it got very emotional at times and personal.
It was so divisive, and it was just extremely, difficult election. And I was 12. I remember people saying, I hate your father, or, closing the door when we were knocking on doors. That was really difficult.
I remember that when we realized that he was going to lose, and my parents were still at home, but all the kids were at the KSC Hall. And I can remember going behind the stage, behind the curtain, and just crying. I couldn't believe. I was by myself. I didn't want anybody to see me. It was devastating. It was just overwhelming that I couldn't believe, because how could he not win? He was supposed to win. We worked so hard. He's the best person to win. But I think I learned a lot from that. I learned about commitment and hard work, and like somebody that's so passionate about something, who really wants to do the right thing, and who just worked so hard for something. And you learn that you don't always win, but then that doesn't mean that you stop. And then to see how he rose from that and what his life became after that was just the most impactful lesson that I've ever had.
We knew he would be a great mayor. It was very positive, really wanted him to run. I knew he'd do a great job. It would be great for the city. I think it was just like a natural progression for him. I really think, he was a great counselor. He was a great counselor at large. He was extremely capable. He had incredible leadership ability. I just think, he had a lot of confidence, and, he was willing to take a risk because he believed so strongly about what he was trying to do.
After losing the mayoral race against Mayor Mavroulas, he had taken a couple of years away from elected office and ran again in 1977. He topped the ticket for Councilor at Large on his comeback from the 1973 race. I topped the ticket for school committee, and we kind of, met at that point. My name is John McGinn. I am proud to be Peter Torigian's campaign manager in 1979 and for several of the elections after that. In 1978, then Mayor Mavroulas wins the election for Congress, and that set up the special election for mayor. Peter called me, it was right before Thanksgiving, and asked on the Friday after Thanksgiving, maybe you could come over and we could talk. And so I remember going to his house, and we talked for about 3 hours. And towards the end of that conversation, he was clear he was running for the special election, and would I be interested in running the campaign. Not sure I fully knew what I was getting myself into, but yeah. Biggest challenge was that it was an election that happened off cycle, so it wasn't like it was a regular municipal election. The primary was in March and the final was a month later in April. Those are hardly months that people that live in a city think of as election time.
We had hundreds and hundreds of people that would come to City Hall and they would be lined up waiting for the results.
We were confident that he had run an election that he would win. Needless to say, the sense of excitement was palpable, and we knew fairly quickly that we were in good shape.
Peter topped that ticket. The swearing in of Mayor Peter Torigian from that special election was a proud moment in my career.
When he became mayor of the city, I told him that this is your job, this is what you wanted, you have to do it. I'm your #1 supporter, and that's as far as it goes.
A lot of meetings were at his house, so there was a lot of coming and going from 82 Fairview Avenue. But having said that, Peter would often in the middle of a meeting say he had to do something for one of his daughters or whatever. He always prioritized that and never forgot the importance of family.
As he became mayor, he did get stretched really thin. There were so many people vying for his time, and then there was still us at home needing his time and attention. But I always felt like he gave me the time I needed, even though I could see, I was older, I was in high school, so I could see he was being pulled in a lot of different directions.
He was so devoted to being mayor and to this city that sometimes it took priority. Even though family was very important, sometimes it was frustrating. Sometimes when you couldn't get his attention right when you wanted it. But he was always home for dinner. Sometimes it meant leaving work and going back.
Even as busy as he was, like when I had softball games, even if it was only for an inning or two, he would always come. He was on the job 24/7, and he understood that, and we kind of had to understand that.
He really didn't sleep that much. He probably, if anything, 5 hours a night. He would get up early, have breakfast, get off to the office.
Most days we had a full schedule. I mean, I've never ever worked for anybody that put in the days that he did. And he had something going on every minute of every day. My name is Mary Bellavance. I was Mayor Torigian's executive secretary. I started in 1986, and I stayed in the mayor's office until I retired in 2019.
I'm Debbie McGregor, and I was Mayor Torigian's administrative assistant, and I worked for him from 1985 to when we both retired from here in 2002. I met Mayor Torigian when I was interviewing for the position. I just graduated from college. His personality, his warmth, his charisma just came right through. I felt so comfortable with him. I felt a connection. I felt the chemistry of this man is going to be something special and something great to work with.
I think in the beginning I was a little nervous to be around him because he was the mayor. But as soon as you get to know him, he wasn't like that at all. He treated us like we were his daughters. From the very, very beginning, he made it very clear that he was our equal. We were never meant to look up to him, even though we did. But he worked with us like we were his equals.
I just remember those years as learning so much from him, and he was so happy to teach. We loved going to work every day. We worked long hours. There's no question about it. We did our daily, City Hall hours, and then nights and weekends we were doing programs. But Mary and I were able to maintain that work-life balance, and that was because of the mayor. Because to him, family was everything. Family was important. So for us, even though we were dedicating all those hours, he made sure that we didn't forget our families. And in most cases, our families came with us, and they volunteered with us. And that was really important to us. That's what kept us going, the support of our families, but knowing that they could be there with us.
I came to work every day, and I would put my heart and soul into what I did because of him. And I did it for him. And I think the fact that he worked with us on everything made you feel special, but it also made you want to do more. And All these programs that we would do on nights and weekends, he was always there. So it wasn't like we were expected to do something that he didn't do himself. Not a day went by that you would leave that office that he didn't come out and say thank you for whatever you had done that day. He appreciated what you did, and he made sure you knew it. So from my first day to my last day, I enjoyed every minute of it.
He gave everything to the job of mayor. I mean, one of the hallmarks not only of that first campaign, but even when Peter was unopposed throughout the years, he always ran as if he was running the toughest race of his life, and he took nothing for granted. We did it all. We did print media, ads, we did radio advertising, but he knew that only took you so far. He knew that it was important to be face-to-face.
I just remember whenever it's a fall day and the leaves are crunching, every of the Sunday mornings, having to be at the headquarters at 9 in the morning, meeting all the people, getting assigned what streets you were going to go to.
When I was young, I loved going door to door, wearing the styrofoam hat with the bumper sticker on it. As I got older, I didn't enjoy too much going door to door, actually knocking on doors. I didn't mind dropping flyers. We did that every Sunday. But when I was young, I thought it was, fun.
His favorite thing was grocery shopping, because that's where he always campaigned. He pushed the cart, talked to people. I ran aisle to aisle, filled the cart.
We did a lot of coffee hours. It's basically you go into someone's home and they invite all their neighbors and you speak for a half an hour about what you care about, and then you answer questions sometimes for a half an hour or so, and then you politely say, I've got to go to another coffee hour, and move on.
I can't imagine today, it's a huge risk for somebody with a young family to go out and run and run and run and get, elected, for 25 years. That was your employment. That was a huge risk. So he took it very seriously. And so not only was he doing something that he was passionate about and he was really good at, but he had to support his family. And so it was important that, we all support him.
One of the realities, you'd have fundraisers, okay? And that's a reality of campaigning, you got to pay for it. But he always wanted to make fundraisers also a social event.
I always looked forward to any celebration we had. The fundraiser we had every other year at Caruso's.
Those were some of my best memories, because you would be all glammed up for that event. As a young child, that was a lot of fun to be able to go and have that type of party.
It was a really exciting event. People looked forward to it, getting dressed up, seeing people they hadn't seen. And he not only brought people in from Peabody, but all over, because he had so much support and so much love out there.
There were probably 800 people that would come to this event. And we all did the seating together. It would be Debbie and myself and the mayor and Jackie. We had a lot of good laughs while we were doing the seating.
One of those parties, I can't remember exactly what year it was, he called me at 1 o'clock in the morning, like it was the middle of the day. And I remember answering the phone, and I'm in bed. Yeah, no, I'm up, Pete. What's up? And he's going over the seating plan. There were a lot of people you could get mad at. You could not get mad at Peter, because that's who he was. You didn't want them to be sitting with somebody they weren't speaking to or something. I mean, he had his hands on everything.
He just had a profound effect on most people that he worked with. And he also felt that everybody's input was valuable. He liked being a final decision maker, of course, but he also listened to everything that everybody had to say. And I think that's really important. I'm Judy Selesnik. I've lived in Peabody over 55 years, and I worked with Peter on so many community activities, and I also was a member on the Peabody City Council from 1994 to 27. I first met Peter when I was named as a representative to the Peabody Arts Council. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts decided to give this big pot of money to cities and towns in the area for them to do cultural activities. And we developed a group of projects that were excellent for the city, and that's where the International Festival was born.
I'd like to tell you a bit about a very creative and innovative event that the Arts Council will be sponsoring. We're going to be holding an international festival in Peabody Square on Sunday, September 23rd.
We came up with a concept because at the Higgins, they had a cultural activity where they had different kinds of foods from all of the different countries, and I thought that that was a really great thing. I was meeting with Peter about the Arts Council funding. I mentioned the event, and he said, well, we have so many different cultures here in Peabody, and that's how it got born.
First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to the city's first International Festival. The purpose of this festival goes beyond just providing entertainment. We in Peabody are proud of our community. We are proud of its people. We are proud of the many ethnic groups and the people who have chosen Peabody as their place to live, raise their families, and be part of our community.
Peter grew up in a neighborhood that had a melting pot of different ethnicities, and so he was able to draw on that, and we were able to make it into an event that was one that was so popular on the whole North Shore.
I think it's a lot larger than we originally planned. I first guesstimated about 7,500 people, but now as I look around, it seems like there are a lot more because the people are coming in and going out. So there may have been about 7,500 solid here, but others have come in and gone out. So I guess it's been upwards of 10,000 from what I hear.
We ran out of food at 1 o'clock. We didn't plan for it to be that successful, but it was great.
He was at every single meeting. He was always there and he always came up with ideas on how we could make things better. He was there from early morning until all the cleanup was done. He never left. We always left together.
He wanted to be part of every minute of it. And that was what made it exciting for us because he was such an important part of that whole thing. And that just gave us such a sense of pride.
When I look back, seeing my father up there at the podium with his International Festival sweatshirt on, looking out, I think that day was probably the day that my father felt the most proud of what he had accomplished, because there it was with 50, 60, 70, 80, 90,000 people that were coming to Peabody Square for something that he had started.
We may do things a little differently, but what's more important, we're all the same as human beings. And I would only suggest to each and every one here that regardless of who the mayor is, you should insist that this city continue to pay tribute to those who came here the turn of the century and made this city what it is today.
I mean, the festival is a great place. People still come there today. It's one of those things that, you know, when you think of Peabody, that's what you think of. But to me, the most important thing about the festival is like what it really stood for, how, you know, people really came here with nothing. And all they had was their, you know, their ethnicity and their family and their language and their food and their culture. And I think that is what makes Peabody the community that it is. And it will really sadden me if we lose some of that. And I think that the meaning of the festival was so personal to him. You know, that to me is the most important memory that I have.
People will say, why do you do all that work? And there's a method to all that madness. And the method to that madness is that if you have programs such as this, you pull a community together. You pull a community together. You bring families together. And no one can hate you for doing that.
We, under Mayor Torigian's leadership, ran so many different programs. Whether it was, we had a strawberry festival at one point, we had a harvest festival, we had the concerts in the Common, which we still have today. We have the City Hall concerts. We did Pride in Peabody. There was always an event going on at some time or other.
Every program had a list. It was the only way to keep organized because there was so much going on all the time. Plus, it was just the day-to-day stuff, too. And every program we did, every year, we add a little on to it.
The mayor's family was extremely involved in everything we did. They volunteered and showed up for everything. They were such a huge support for him. And it brought them into his life.
A big part of even my young adulthood in my early 20s, 30s, a lot of our social life was revolved around different activities that would be spearheaded by what he was doing in the city. And I just always remember feeling proud that it was because of my father that was even being able to be a part of this, and that to go to this event and know that your father was sort of the headliner, like the 75th anniversary, the Jubilee.
The Jubilee was a lot of fun. Albie Cohen He was the Grand Marshal, and he planned the Jubilee Parade. And Mary and I held the lead banner in our white tuxedos. Weather was awful, it was cold, it was drizzly, but it was amazing. Albie Cohen brought the mummers in, and the mayor lit up. I think that was probably one of the highlights of all of the events that he did. I think that was probably the one thing that just had the most impact on him. He just absolutely loved that. He was one for parade. He loved a good parade, but he always loved a good party.
He also had a ball as part of the Jubilee. Almies had moved out of the mall. So we took over that space and transformed it. Everybody that came in had a fabulous time, and they were just blown away that anybody would come up with such a great idea.
The Grand March was the highlight. It was something. It was gorgeous how they transformed the room. It was beautiful.
Peter Torigian loved to have so many events in the city of Peabody. We would have a standard joke is, how are we going to pay for this? My name is Patty Schaefer. I was the Director of Finance for the city of Peabody. I began my career in 1985 and I retired in 2015. I had the pleasure of working with Peter Torigian for over 16 and a half years. Thinking back to the years that I worked with Peter regarding financial planning and working on budgets, it was eye-opening. He had an uncanny ability to grasp the whole picture of municipal finance. But we'd be sitting together during a budget or something. He would add up the numbers before I even got it in my calculator. He was really a very smart man.
And it just never ceased to amaze me. How could we afford to buy a house? How could we afford to buy a car? How could we afford to do all the things we had to do with these children? But he had the numbers, and he just carried it right on into being mayor.
When he came into office, I was not with him at that time, but he had incredible challenges ahead. The city the bond rating had been suspended. They had deficits in so many areas. The tax base was not a solid tax base. And he worked tirelessly to improve every one of those areas.
He had been mayor 1 year when Proposition 2.5 passed in 1980. When 2.5 came in, it was a very uneven thing because some communities had to cut more than others. And, Peabody definitely had to cut significant monies at that time.
You've got to lay off all of these people. You've got to cut services. You've got to cut teachers. And it was very difficult time for municipalities and for Mayor Torigian to deal with. And it didn't happen overnight. The resolution took time, but it only came to fruition by making those tough decisions.
What do we want? Contracts! When do we want it? Now!
Mayor, is the city willing to pay more than the 5.5% pay raises that they promised?
I see. I'm not going to sit here and negotiate on TV with the press. I think we've made our offer, and the committee has, on 2. We have not received a counter, and at 42%, I can't even begin to talk to people at that type of irresponsible level.
Our first proposal was high. We knew it was high. We wanted to signal the mayor that we are way behind. We felt we were way behind the other surrounding communities.
We had 13 unions in Peabody. So during his negotiations, he had to deal with a varied group of individuals that wanted different things. And they wouldn't always get everything they wanted, but there was an element of fairness, providing the unions with what they were looking for, but not overburdening the taxpayer.
In my hand is a order from the State Labor Relations Commission ordering teachers back to work. They have been ordered to cease and desist. They have chosen not to do so.
He was frustrated by the whole thing because he was trying to bring this to a peaceful settlement. He certainly was not anti-labor union. He was a former union president of the local postal workers union.
They were circling the entire city hall, and we had to come in. And it was very, very intense trying to get through that picket line to come into the offices.
We offered 5.5% compounded over 3 years. We offered 17%. And on 5 specific occasions, when we made offers, they said reject, no counter. Reject, no counter. Reject, no counter. Which means that they would not budge from 42%. Ladies and gentlemen, I just cannot stand here and allow this city to end up in financial disaster because somebody thinks that that is an acceptable position to be in and will not move from.
We ultimately got through that period of time, but it was not a pleasant experience.
Overall, he tried to be as fair as he could, allocating to both what we considered both sides of the budget, education and general government.
People say to me, what? You should be spending more and more. Every day I hear that. Then I say to them, we have to strike a balance to be able to make our community affordable for working families.
You know, he understood from firsthand experience that not everybody had the resources that some people might have. He understood that some people had to work harder to get things in life than perhaps other people do. Economic development, to him, was providing jobs that gave people dignity, providing jobs that allowed people to have attained home ownership. Particularly, you know, when you sort of understand what had happened with the gradual phase out of the leather industry.
Turn of the century, Peabody was the leather capital of the world. It employed 8,000 leather workers in 106 tanneries. In those days, when the smell of leather was in the air, you knew a lot of people were working.
Peter had worked in the factories for a period of time, and when that sort of over time came to an end, that something had to replace it. Otherwise, we were going to really be in trouble as a community. That's why Peter always emphasized new growth so much, because under 2.5, your levy can go up 2.5% a year maximum, but plus new growth.
Centennial Park represented new growth. So that new growth helped offset the residential tax rate. And also at the same time, motor vehicle excise tax went from $66 down to $25 a thousand. And all of those items had to be made up. Was a burden that was placed on the residential. And he took it very serious and made the cuts where he had to make the cuts in order to build back up. And Centennial Park really helped with that.
Before he came into office, there was just the idea of the Centennial Industrial Park. My name is Dennis DeZoglio, and I was the Community Development Director for the City of Peabody from 1986 to the end of 1993.
My name is Judy Otto, and I worked for the City of Peabody. I began in 1986 as a planner, and over 16 years worked my way up to being the Director of the Community Development and Planning Department. When I talk about my time working for Peabody, I always say we had a guy leading us who had the financial savvy to make so many things happen. Other places may have dreamed of doing these kinds of projects, but we had the financial wherewithal to get these things done because of his financial leadership.
My initial focus when he brought me on board was the Centennial Industrial Park. He was very concerned about the image of the community, and it was something that was embedded in everything we did. The buildings were all high-end buildings, and he wanted to continue that. So even the new extension, say, of the Centennial Industrial Park had to have that feature, and we were able to develop regulations that allowed us to continue that.
The occupancy of the park and bringing in anchor tenants like Analogic and Avnet and things like that. I remember how thrilled he was each time with these meetings with these potential companies coming in and how many jobs they were going to bring. And
I think the park has surpassed anybody's expectation in terms of tax base and jobs. The city was willing to take a risk with the land assembly and investments in roads and utilities, and I think our investment has paid off handsomely.
The critical part that what really made Centennial Park take off was direct access from 128. If that hadn't happened, I'm not sure Centennial Park wouldn't have been as successful as it was, because it made it into a more regional employment center because of its easy access.
He worked with the industrial parks. He worked with the healthcare system, the hotels on Route 1, North Shore Shopping Center. That at one point was one of the largest tax bases before Centennial Park. And it was a foundation that was built, and it continued to be built over time. It wasn't overnight, it was developed, and it continues today.
He was very forward-thinking in a planning capacity. For a person who hadn't been trained in planning, he had an extraordinary grasp of the field of planning. He was very hands-on and very can-do, but he was also a really big ideas person.
The first time I met him was during the interviewing process, and I sat down with him, and we had a very good conversation, and I came back for a second interview. And then I got surprised because I was called in for a third interview. I mean, it was really a one-question interview, and it was, what is your definition of loyalty? And he goes, I'm not looking for yes people. He goes, we come in, you can tell me I'm wrong, we can do all the kind of discussions about options and everything like that. I'll never be mad. He goes, but when we make a decision, we open that door, we all own that decision.
I, too, was asked the loyalty question at my interview. So that sense of commitment to a shared purpose, that always demanding the most of yourself in any given situation, especially in public service, those are lifelong lessons. And I was thrilled to work in a public capacity where honesty and integrity was always at the forefront of our values and the work that we did.
Typical Mayor Torigian is that when we started to have so much success and all the spaces were being filled up, he said, Dennis, what's the next Centennial Industrial Park?
This is a plan of the Peabody Square area. The improvements will be dealing with trying to reconfigure the traffic flow in the square.
We focused a lot on downtown. We had the urban systems. We fixed all the streets.
He wanted downtown to be alive. That's when he decided to do over the square and move the monument, which was a major project.
I'm extremely proud, pleased at the outcome of about 8 years or 9 years of work.
The simple fact of fixing up buildings, of getting tenants who would draw people downtown, the sort of lighthearted things like flower baskets and fancy light poles, all these things contributed so much to the feel of downtown.
Bottom line is, he wanted Peabody to be recognized as a community that was really a nice place.
Peter was innately a smart guy, and whatever he got involved with, he became an expert, whether it be community development, whether it be municipal finance, every facet of municipal management. And I think he had a keen instinct to be thinking about the present, but also looking to the future. And looking to the future is every bit as important, because you have to have some sort of vision. If you're always chasing today's news, you're never really preparing for the next thing.
First of all, let me thank Cablevision for the opportunity to be here and talk to you a little bit about an issue that you've probably been reading about, and that issue is the issue of Leahy Clinic coming to the city of Peabody, and a transaction that will take place between J.B. Thomas Hospital and Leahy Clinic.
J.B. Thomas board had come in to the mayor and asked if they could come to terms with the closure of the facility because they could no longer operate it.
I was on the city council at the time. It was controversial, but the healthcare industry was changing big time, and there was no way a municipality could afford to maintain a locally based hospital where the municipality would have to bail out losses that the hospital was getting.
That was one of the major decisions that Peter had to make as mayor. That was a really tough decision. It was really hard for the citizens because everybody was so used to being able to just go to the hospital or go to the emergency room there, knowing all the nurses, and it was a really big convenience. But he had to do what was in the best financial interests of the citizens too, regarding their taxes and regarding the amount of money that we had to, we, being the city of Peabody, had to put in for the J.B. Thomas Hospital each year.
The chamber was full of people. It was a very, very emotional night. And in his kind way, he just explains everything, and it was the right thing at the time.
it wasn't not just about closing it, but how could we build something for the future? And that's when he connected with Joe Bowles, who was an ophthalmologist that worked at Leahy.
Leahy came in and they bought the license. So we transferred the license over to Leahy, renovated and opened up the old Essex Bank building, which turned into Leahy and they operate today.
Now we have a state-of-the-art hospital clinic in Peabody that wouldn't have existed if we just simply closed that hospital at the time.
The teacher strike, the J.B. Thomas Hospital closing, those were very, very challenging times, both for the mayor, for the city, for City Hall. And people were angry. They called City Hall, they called the mayor's office. They wanted to blow off steam. They wanted to tell us and tell him how upset that they were with things.
And I think the fact that he listened to what people were saying to us and how they were treating us, and he always made a point of letting us know that we were doing things correctly, that you just need to listen, you need to be, you need to sympathize with them, but let them know that they're not wrong. Nobody's wrong. Everybody has their right to their own opinion.
And we understood that people were on both sides of the issues, whatever that might be. And he would come out and he would take the phone, and within minutes, he could calm them down, have a nice conversation, always said to them, "You're welcome to come into my office. Let's sit down, let's talk about it."
He was really big on constituent services and meeting with people. I was shocked when I first started working at City Hall to learn that he would see any person who made an appointment.
He was always a very approachable person, and people always felt free to get his ear, and he would make time for people. And when he spoke to you, he wasn't like one of these people speaking to you but looking over your shoulder at the next person he wants to talk to. He was talking to you, and you had his full attention. And that's a gift, in my view, because he was not only somebody who could communicate well, he could listen well.
He would listen to everybody's viewpoints, but he knew where he had to go. He knew that when things were controversial, he had to make the hard decisions, and he was tough enough to make them. And I think that that is the mark of a true leader.
He really wanted to establish municipal government that first and foremost was integrity and being straight with what the problems of the city were with the voters. And he recognized that there was a shift culturally in the way people looked at government service. And Peter cared so much about public service, and he really wanted to attract younger people into it.
It is very disheartening to see the lack of interest in local government. And that is something that my father worked very hard at, was to engage people and, keep the community interested.
He was a wonderful teacher. He loved going in and reading to the kids and talking with them. He would give tours around City Hall. They would come into his office, and he was showing them that I'm just a human like you are. I'm just a dad like many of you have. And he loved city government, and he wanted kids to experience that.
They should never, ever be reluctant or fear walking in City Hall and talking to a public official or a mayor to explain to them their likes or dislikes or what they would like to see in the community.
He certainly thought that preparing the next generation was critical. He really beefed up Student Government Day in that effort.
Student Government Day started before Mayor Torigian became mayor, but when he took it over, he expanded it. And he wanted more students to be able to have that opportunity to understand how city government works and what an honor it is to work here at City Hall.
The students have to run an election, get elected for their department, and then they come to City Hall, and then they go off for the day and they run their city departments. And then there's a whole program where the councilors run a meeting, school committee runs a meeting, the department heads have to come up and speak before the council and school committee.
They got a chance to see how everybody gets together and gets along and how the different departments relate to each other. And it was always a lot of fun. And I always liked to be able to spend time with a person who chose to be me and shadow me for the day. And I think the kids really enjoyed it. It was a positive experience for them to see where their parents' tax dollars are going.
I wish at some point that we could convince people, and a lot of good people, that they should get into this profession, because it's important that we have to leave something for our youngsters, and our youngsters have to leave something for their youngsters. And unless we start attracting quality people, then this society of ours will be in serious trouble.
A lot of speculation over the last 6 months as to what I may or may not do politically. What I'm going to say tonight is not going to be a big surprise. And that is, I'm going to end all the talk of the newspapers about where I should go and where I may go. And I want to say that tonight I am officially announcing that I'm a candidate for re-election for mayor.
When those sort of rumors were going around, and there was a couple little articles in the Salem News or the Globe about, Torigian should be governor. For me at that point, it was, I'm all in. I knew that he recognized that the sacrifice that would be to him, to his family, and also the financial resources that you would need in order to run a statewide campaign. I knew there were those realities, but, you kind of have that idolized picture, he would be a fantastic governor. So I was always hopeful that he would run.
At the time, I thought that would be a huge step, and I really thought it was something that he definitely could have accomplished. But when he came and he sat down with all of us in the other room, and he said, there would be no more of this. And that was it. And we all said, okay. We agreed, and that meant too much to him, more than going further.
I just want to tell you that I've enjoyed living here in the city of Peabody. I think you've done a good job. I can say that because you're unopposed, and I wish you the best of luck in the future, wherever it may be. How long is that going to be? How much longer are you going to be mayor?
Everyone keeps saying, is this your last term? And I said, there's one person that's going to know before anybody. That's my wife, and I haven't told her that. No, if someone can predict how my health is in 2 years and things of that nature, whether I've had enough or not, that's a whole, something I haven't even worried about, Bill. Okay. Right now, my job is to run the city the very best I can and secure its future.
Debbie was actually typing the speech and called me over and said, I think you want to read this. And I looked down, and to be honest, I was totally shocked. We both were. Usually anytime he made a decision about anything, he talked to us about it first. And this he never let on.
Dad and Mom came to our houses individually, sat us down, and said, this is what I've decided. He worked so hard his whole entire life, and I just wanted him to have an opportunity to enjoy his life.
I just wasn't 100% sure that he was really serious and wanted to do it. And even driving down to City Hall that night, I can still remember, are you sure you want to do this? And he said yes. And even up until the time where he stood and made his speech, that I wasn't sure he was really going to say it. But he did.
Jackie and I have discussed our future. We have been blessed with a wonderful, loving family. I've been blessed with a loving and supportive wife for over 41 years, of which most of that time has been in the not-so-quiet political arena. No one could ask more of their family than I have received from mine to be part of what we have accomplished. It is time for me to take a step back and share more time with my family and take a little rest. For that reason, I announce tonight that I will not be a candidate for re-election this fall.
I had no idea that this was going to happen. The energy in the room was just that you could hear a pin drop in the auditorium.
I just remember sitting there, and when he said it, how the speech stopped, and all my family and my mother and my sisters all went up and gave him a hug, because I knew that that was probably one of the hardest things he ever had to do in his life, because I knew what it meant to him to be mayor. And the fact that he had made this decision was something that we just all felt immediately we have to go give him this support. To be honest, I was happy for him. I knew that he worked so hard and that, you know, he had made this decision really thoughtfully and, you know, it was what he wanted to do. But part of me, I guess, was worried or disappointed because I felt like this was what defined him. This was so much a part of who he was that I wondered, you know, is this the best thing?
Very emotional, very teary, happy tears, sad tears, every emotion going through. Oh, this is sad for the city. Oh, it's sad for the people who work here with him day in, day out. I know I'd be crying if I worked with him day in, day out and I wasn't going to see him anymore.
You know, I think we just assumed he'd be mayor forever. But we realized and we understood that, you know, he deserved to retire. He'd been in office for so many years, but it was very emotional because we were a family. And we knew that family was coming to an end in some respects. And it was hard. It was really hard, but we respected him for that. You know, he made the right decision for him.
Let me welcome everybody here tonight. We're having a night of reflections and memories to honor Peter Torigian for 23 years of dedicated service to the city of Peabody as our mayor.
I don't like to think of it as a retirement party. I think it was a celebration of all his years as mayor.
We had, you know, city employees, we had business people that he had worked with all these years, people from all of his committees, people from outside the community that he worked with through the Mass Mayors Association, the Mass Municipal Association, our family members, our family members, the family members of City Hall. It was amazing, the turnout of all of these people that wanted to wish him well.
I remember we had the meetings at my house with the committee to plan this whole thing that we were going to do for him and coming up with different ideas and hearing different people's perspectives of how they interacted with him. Like Debbie and Mary's interaction was different than, you know, ours and whatnot.
I just remember that was sort of the culmination of all the events. This was going to be the last one. And so there was so much time, so much energy, so much passion and that people put into that event. We had a big video that we produced, and I guess what I remember is how many people were so excited to be a part of that video and sort of the authentic testimonials that they gave.
He was an amazing, amazing person. And the number of people when you watch that video who loved him, truly loved him, it's quite a legacy, quite a tribute.
It was a sad night because, you know, he was retiring, but it was also a very happy night that we all were able to celebrate him.
It was just so many people turned out and it was so nice to see them all and everybody had such wonderful things to say. It was very rewarding.
My life would not be what it is today if it were not for you. I am not crazy enough to think that all of a sudden I did this alone. I did it with you. You are the ones who I owe a debt of gratitude. And by the way, I was born in Peabody and I will never leave. I'm a homer. And God willing, if I stay healthy, I hope our paths will cross as time goes on, because I never want to forget what you have done for us as a family. You can tell the pride in all of their feelings and mine. So to each and every one of you, we say, thank you, and God bless you all.
Our whole life had been wrapped around going to functions and, you know, different events, and, you know, what did it mean for us too? Life was going to change.
His last day in office, well, we'd had a little party here at City Hall and everybody came to say goodbye. And I remember standing in the office and hugging each other.
I mean, it was bad enough that he was leaving, but then when Debbie decided that maybe it was a good time for her to start a new chapter in her life, I felt like I was alone. It was never the same. It was heartbreaking when they left.
You know, Mary and I were so close. I knew we'd still be friends and we'd be seeing each other. I knew that the mayor was always going to be a part of our lives. So I knew that, you know, our friendships were always going to be there. But that chapter of our lives was over, and that day was really, really tough.
He was working with the Y. I mean, he was doing things that he didn't have time to do prior, and he was doing things that were a continuation of what he had been doing. So it was selfless service to the community.
So he was gone, pretty much like, okay, Pete, so much for your retirement.
After the mayor retired, there were many times that I would drive over to his house looking for advice. And, we stayed in touch with both him and Jackie, went out socially with them for many years until he, started to feel unwell.
I mean, he had a few health issues that he had to deal with, and then he just started complaining of a little discomfort in his shoulder and his arm, and figured that it was probably all the gardening that he was doing or whatnot.
It was tough, but he tried to stay positive, tried to keep going, wanted us all to be strong.
You wanted to believe that he was going to beat it, because he would always say he's a Marine and he was tough, and he meant a lot to so many of us. And it was hard to see that happen to a great guy.
It's just too sad, really, that we had to lose Pete at such a young age. He should be around us today and so forth to see the fruits of his labor. I just can see Pete upstairs, with the good Lord and so forth. He's advising him on daily issues, because that's the kind of a guy Pete was.
Even though there are many people that were part of his administration or, part of his campaigns that I don't really have daily contact, so many of those people that I used to see all the time aren't really part of my daily life anymore. But when I drive by and I see, the community center, or I see the YMCA, it's just a constant reminder of those times and remembering what his legacy is. And you feel great to have been a part of all those different things.
There are so many of our senior citizens who have given so much of themselves to making our community what it is today. I am pleased that we are well on our way to building a new comprehensive center.
He had almost 30 people that worked for community development. And we did everything from building inspections to the development of municipal buildings. And the one that did capture the mayor's attention the most was the senior center. We sought a number of different designs from a lot of different communities, trying to take the best design features from each one of those projects, because the mayor wanted the best senior center.
I want to say that this is being done for now, but also with an eye towards the future. It'll have everything that will make it a lot easier for you, and by then me. So I hope that
Peter could foresee that there were going to be generations down the road that would enjoy and be part of the senior center. We have an amazing team up there working. Peter would be so proud of this. I know he would.
He insisted that it not be named a senior center, but a life center where people could go and enjoy themselves and live, not just watch themselves get old.
You go up there, and if you're hungry, we'll feed you. If you want to work out, we'll train you. If you want to do anything, we'll be there to take care of you. It was actually privileged that they made me a speaker. It was such a nice event, actually.
Today we are gathered to pay tribute to Mayor Peter A. Torigian and renaming the Community Life Center in his honor. It is only fitting that this fine complex bear his name, as he will be recorded in Peabody's history as the longest reigning mayor with an impeccable and enviable record of achievement.
There's really a lot that goes behind that name. It's not just a person did good deeds. It's, there's so much more behind it. And the hardest part is, if we don't carry that on, people aren't going to know why his name's there.
You can build nice buildings, you could make improvements for the community, but the idea that the community is strong and vibrant is his approach. And so every day, people that listened to him knew that Peabody was special. And I think that which is his legacy is that he cared so much about this community, and everything, again, was driven by making Peabody better.
Mayor Torigian had this idea to build an 18-hole regulation-style municipal golf course. And so he brokered the deal with Eastman Gelatin Corporation to have a combination of some city-owned land and then a long-term lease with some property of theirs. There was quite a lot of opposition in the neighborhood to using the land for this purpose.
The neighbors were very concerned about the traffic and about the possibility of alcohol. But after we saw all of the plans and saw what a beautiful addition it would be to the city, as well as many meetings with the neighbors and trying to work through the concerns, we passed it. I did end up voting for it after there were many conditions put on the special permit, because you have to really balance what's best for the city and what's best for the neighborhood as well. And being a councilor at large, you had to have the big picture approach and what was best for the city.
And we could have had a lot of that become residential development. That's kind of safeguarded from that happening, you know, in terms of getting more density and everything.
The project had a lot of difficulties in terms of dealing with the public bidding law in Massachusetts and ending up with a contractor who was, let's just say, less than, dealing with a hazardous waste dump that was found during construction that had to be remediated. Fortunately, there was enough of a contingent of people in the community who supported it, and ultimately it's still going strong, and it's, I think, a great asset to the community.
I just remember how excited Peter was about the golf course. And what was so interesting to me about that is Peter didn't play golf.
Golf was not fast enough for him compared to baseball, football, and basketball.
I just want to say that for me, it's a wonderful feeling to know that this community now has its own golf course, its own farm, its own skating rink. My next goal, I don't think I have enough time to do it, but we'll have the groundwork laid, and that is to build a swimming facility through the YMCA.
That he really wanted the Y be part of this community for families and for individuals to go and get healthy and be together, and to have his name on it, our name on it, is amazing.
Peter would be very, very proud to be here. The saddest part is that he's not here physically to see us, but I know he's with us in spirit.
Jackie was the quiet one behind Mayor Torigian all the time, but she was his support. She was his strength. And after the mayor passed away, his commitment to the community became her commitment. She served on many boards and many committees, and to this day, she still has been involved.
I, to this day, still keep in touch with the girls and with Jackie. They're like part of our family. They'll always be part of our family.
I've been very fortunate as a new mayor to have a number of people that have provided me with advice and suggestions and help along the way, many of the people who are here today. But one lady who's been a great source of advice for me, somebody who I greatly admire, is Jackie Torigian. I wanted to thank her for all the support she's given me. Nobody cares more for this city than her.
After Peter's passing, a community service award was given in his honor at the Peabody International Festival. I was very honored to get the first one. Jackie was also given a community service award, and she very well deserved it for being such a wonderful wife and First Lady.
Together with Mayor Betancourt and the International Festival Committee, I am honored to present this year's Peter Torigian Memorial International Festival Award to Jackie Torigian, who truly is and has been the cornerstone of this festival since Mayor Peter Torigian had a dream.
She's never been really, what I would say, the person who has to be in the limelight, so to speak. And her strength comes, I think, from being able to not worry about who's getting credit, not worrying about, but going about her business and doing the job on a day-to-day basis.
I just can't believe it. But I thank everybody so much. The committee, the mayors that have kept this alive. Peter's memory, he's up there watching us every second. Thank you, thank you.
If you could do it all over again, being a mayor's wife, the
chaos, the events, the lack of spare time, would you do it all exactly the same way, or would you go back and do anything differently?
I don't think I would go back and do anything differently. He had his life, he loved his job. I had mine, I had my job, but we, focused on family during his whole tenure of political life, and that was very, very important.
Overall, my experience with my dad being mayor was overwhelmingly positive. It's just an impact that, he had on my life. And I'd want to say that to him, that not only did you, teach us and hopefully to be good citizens and to be good people, but that's going to be carried through the generations, and you have impacted more people in your life than you could ever know.
I have to say that one of the best things that the Mayor Torigian left to me was one of my best friends. And if it wasn't for him, it's true, we never would have met. Yeah. I think that's one of the best things he ever did for us.
He did. He did. He was the best guy to know in your life. If you had to have a good neighbor and friend to meet, he was the real deal.
I'm proud. Thank you for being such a wonderful tip.
I truly feel blessed that our careers were actually parallel with each other. I do not believe back in '67 I would have ever thought that I would have had the friendship that I have with Jackie and Peter.
Everything I do today, I think of what he would want me to do or what he would think. And I think, even though he's not here, he is, because I think about him every minute. When I need to make a decision, or when we're having a fun family time, he's right there.
I've been in government, local and regional government, for 40 years. And when I think back of it, the enthusiasm that he espoused was something that you just soaked in. I think my whole career or my life would have changed if I never had the experience of working for the city of Peabody and working for Mayor Peter Torigian.
Of course it was work, and he had to get up and go to work, but we didn't, I think at the time, recognize how special it was and how the team, the family, as we've said, how you don't get that everywhere and how important and how special it really was.
When I met Pete in '49, he was no different than when he was the mayor of the city of Peabody. To me, it never went to his head. He was just a down-to-earth person and so forth.
Today, when I look back at my career, I consider myself very fortunate and lucky to have served under Peter Torigian, a man of integrity, dedication, hardworking, and he truly cared about the city of Peabody.
It doesn't matter what community you live in, be part of it.
Just take a look around the city of Peabody. There were just so many things that have happened during the 23 years of his administration that I will always remember and associate with him. And it showed people that Peabody was a really family-oriented city.
He was just one of the best mayors the city's ever had, but, he was still just dad to us.
There's going to be a day when there aren't going to be people that were here when he was mayor. And hopefully this is one type of thing that can help to remind people that there once was a guy named Peter Torigian who was a very special individual and was the mayor for 20 plus years.
People ask me what I want to be most remembered for. And maybe I'm a little bit different, I hope I am, in terms of what I believe community is about. It is not about buildings. If you have enough money, you can hire an architect, you can build a building, and you can cut the ribbon, and mayors like to do that, by the way. That, to me, those are nice things, but what is more important to me is community. And community is not buildings, it's people. It's what you think about your city, about your government, about whether you really like to raise your family here. The one thing I hope more than anything that I leave, and I leave Peabody as a better place to live. A place where you are proud to raise your family, that you enjoy where you are, that It's a community that you do not have to say, I live north of Boston. It's a community that you say, I live in Peabody, Massachusetts, and I am proud to live there. That's what this is all about.